They moved more gold than Rome. For 800 years, Sogdian merchants controlled every transaction on the Silk Road. No empire could trade without them. Then, in one generation, they vanished completely. This is how the world's first banking empire collapsed. In the year 700, a Tang Chinese official wrote something remarkable. He noted that whenever merchants gathered anywhere from Constantinople to Chang'an, the Sogdians were always there. Always in the middle. Always taking their cut. But here's what makes this strange. Sogdiana was tiny. A collection of oasis cities in what is now Uzbekistan. They produced almost nothing themselves. No armies conquered territory for them. No navy protected their ships. Yet somehow, these desert traders became the indispensable middlemen of the ancient world. The question that haunted their rivals then haunts historians now. How did a people with no military power dominate global trade for 8 centuries? The answer would become their greatest vulnerability. The Sogdians invented something revolutionary. Trust at a distance. In an age when cheating a foreign merchant carried no consequences, the Sogdians created a network where reputation meant everything. A merchant's word in Samarkand could secure credit in Chang'an, 3,000 miles away. They did this through family. Sogdian trading houses weren't just businesses. They were clans. A son stationed in Constantinople, a cousin in India, an uncle managing operations in the Chinese capital. Every transaction moved through relatives who would rather die than dishonor the family name. Pause 2s, if this sounds familiar, it should. The Sogdians essentially created the first international banking system. Letters of credit. Foreign exchange. Long-distance fund transfers. They pioneered it all. 1,200 years before the Rothschilds. And every empire needed them. But let me show you something that changes everything about how we understand their power. In 1907, archaeologist Aurel Stein discovered something extraordinary in a sealed cave in northwestern China. Ancient letters. Written in Sogdian. Dating to the year 313. SFX, dramatic sound, one letter describes the fall of the Chinese capital to barbarian invaders. It's panicked. Desperate. The merchant writes that the Chinese emperor is dead, that fire destroyed the city, that their trading partners have fled. But here's what stopped historians cold. This merchant wasn't Chinese. Wasn't in China when it happened. He was writing from a trading post 1,000 miles away. And he knew about the disaster within weeks. Think about that. In the 4th century, when news traveled at the speed of a walking horse, the Sogdians had an information network that functioned like an ancient internet. Now imagine you're a Chinese emperor. Or a Persian king. Or a Byzantine merchant prince. You want to move silk from China to Rome. You need someone who speaks the languages. Knows the routes. Has trusted contacts in every city along the way. Someone who can convert currencies, navigate tariffs, bribe the right officials. The Sogdians were the only ones who could do all of this. They made themselves impossible to replace. Pause 2s, and for 800 years, this worked perfectly. Empires rose and fell around them. The Persians conquered them, then relied on them. The Turks swept through, then hired them. The Tang Chinese distrusted them, then couldn't function without them. Each new conqueror discovered the same thing. You could rule Sogdiana, but you couldn't rule trade without Sogdians. This gave them something no army could provide. They were simply too valuable to destroy. But here's what nobody tells you about the Sogdian story. Everything I just described, their banking networks, their information systems, their irreplaceable expertise, it all depended on one thing they never had. SFX, dramatic sound, military protection. And in the early 700s, that gamble finally failed. The Sogdians had survived by being useful to whoever held power. But what happens when a new power arrives that doesn't need middlemen? What happens when the conquerors bring their own merchants, their own language, their own networks? Pause 2s, the Arab armies that swept out of Arabia after 632 weren't interested in hiring Sogdian expertise. They were building something new. A unified Islamic trading zone where Arabic was the language of commerce and Muslim merchants had preferential treatment. For the first time in 8 centuries, the Sogdians faced competitors they couldn't outmaneuver. The fall came faster than anyone expected. In 709, Arab forces crossed the Oxus River and entered Sogdian territory. The city of Bokhara fell first. Then Samarkand. The merchant princes tried their old strategy. They offered submission. Promised tribute. Proposed to serve the new rulers as they had served every conqueror before. Pause 2s, it didn't work. The Arab commander Qutayba ibn Muslim wasn't interested in partnership. He executed the Sogdian nobility. Burned their Zoroastrian temples. Replaced their merchant networks with Muslim traders from the west. Within 20 years, Sogdian went from being the language of international commerce to a dying tongue spoken only in remote mountain villages. And here's the brutal truth. The world barely noticed. The Silk Road kept functioning. Goods still moved between east and west. The only difference was who collected the profits. What happened to the Sogdians is a masterclass in how civilizations vanish. They didn't die in some apocalyptic battle. They assimilated. Converted. Forgot. Those who survived the conquests faced a choice. Keep your language, your religion, your identity, and be excluded from the new economic order. Or convert to Islam, learn Arabic, and rejoin the trade networks your ancestors built. Most chose survival. Within 3 generations, Sogdian children no longer spoke their parents' language.